episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And the guy who is supposed to look like Scott is not Scott. It is Rob D'Amico. Let me just say this first very quickly. Everything's gone to hell today. So I think this my Wi-Fi connection might be about to go out. So I apologize in advance. The COE cannot connect. I don't know if it's a thing in our area. Let me just, I'm going to spend about a minute whining. We also had the court hearing this morning for Clenney, the case that we're about to talk about with Rob D'Amico and Phil Waters. We had the Zoom feed. Courtney has been in court every single time. So, of course, I was waiting to see her. And during that time, we had Melba Pearson, a legal mind, an attorney. So I was speaking to her, and I went off on a tangent about Ellen Greenberg because that case is driving me crazy. And lo and behold, eventually the Zoom ends, and we're like, what happened? There was 1,800 people in the chat. Turns out, during the time I was talking about Ellen Greenberg and I had the court muted, she never came to court and it was just her attorneys. And since then, I've been trying to figure out what happened. She was asking for bail, which I'm almost certainly. Oh, look at this. Julie Frew. She's the best. I think the bond was already denied and just confirmed it. So it was supposed to be a bond hearing. She's trying to get out of jail and no go for her. Joel, long time no see. It's okay. You got the Delphi verdict passes. Can't win them all. Thank you, Marvin's mom. So anyway, it's been quite the day. And any moment, I'm probably going to disappear from your screen because we've got Fisher Price equipment. And then I'm going to have Rob D'Amico, who's got a brand new killer mic, and Phil Waters just talk about whatever the two of them want to talk about while I go and get a drink. So obviously, you guys all know Phil Waters, legendary homicide detective, over 400 homicides investigated. Guy's got like craziest clearance rate, like 93 or 95%, crazy criminal confession rate, like 95%. Phil, what are the exact numbers there?
96% clearance, 90% confession rate.
That's about the best homicide detective you'll find anywhere. Phil, the master of his profession. And then you got Rob D'Amico, 40 years of service to his country. Both these guys, Marines, once a Marine, always a Marine. And then Rob went on to the FBI, where he was chasing pirates around Somalia and doing other wild things. Some of it right here in Miami. So without further ado, I was explaining to Rob, Fridays are kind of crazy. And this Friday will be no different, except it might be different in that my picture is going to go out any second. So it looks like Clenney denied bond. Phil Waters, to you, is that any surprise? This is a woman who is charged with, I believe it's second-degree murder. She's been behind bars for 2 years. Typically, murder defendants don't always get bail or bond. She's a woman. She was a model. Not a model citizen. Does it surprise you that she was apparently denied bond yet again today?
No, I think there must be some circumstances there that the prosecutors have asked for no bond, and that's, in my experience, that's been the case where we've had cases that, bond, a bail is not supposed to be punishment of any kind, but then you've got to consider the case and the suspect, the defendant, and what are the possibilities that they're not going to. The bond is to make them appear.
Yeah.
So it's something that's kind of held over their head so that they will appear. And there must be something going on here that they're afraid that she might try to flee. So
what the hell's the difference between bail and bond, Phil?
Quite that. It's semantics. I mean,
Semantics.
It's just the bail is the description of the money you're going to put up for whatever you've been charged with, to make sure that you return to face your court date. The bond is just another term for, I guess that would be the actual money transaction.
All right, there you go. Rob D'Amico, you and I were talking, and I think the defense team was trying to get this reduced to a manslaughter charge. Under that possibility, which hasn't happened, she probably would have been released. But do you think that that's why they were trying to get the charges lowered?
I think so, because I mean they actually showed a lot of their defense already trying to get it reduced, and I wouldn't do that if I didn't have to do it for some reason. I mean, you want it to be at court. Now that the prosecution is going to have a lot of time to prepare, because they know what's going to be said to a point. So, but if they're trying to reduce it to manslaughter to get that threshold lower, so she gets released, because it's always easier to build a case if your client's released and you have the ability to get with them every day instead of going into a prison and all that stuff. So I think that's what they're trying to do, reducing it to manslaughter.
Yeah. So thank you again to Julie Frew, our amazing mod, who put together a timeline. I'm just going to run through it very quickly. So the couple meets, and here they are. There we go. Clenney and Obamselli, her boyfriend, who I'm just going to pull it up so we can see him real quick. This guy. And there's Courtney in her jumpsuit and in her bikini. And then back to the timeline. So Courtney Clenney and her boyfriend, Christian Obamselli, they meet November 2020. They moved to Miami together in 2022. She is arrested in Las Vegas for attacking him back in July 2021. In March 2022, she tells friends she no longer wants to be with him. They break up, Phil Waters, and then he moves back in on April Fool's Day, which should have been a sign. April Fool's 2022. He moves back in. On April 2nd is the now infamous elevator video that we're going to see where she's beating on him. And the next day is when she allegedly flings a knife at him. Phil Waters, in DV cases, do you typically see sort of an escalation? They had issues before, and now he moves in, they have a big fight the next day. Next day, he ends up dead.
So they moved back in on April Fool's Day?
Yes. Yeah, he had moved out, moves
that
back.
That may have been a harbinger of things to come.
I agree.
So, these types of relationships, I mean, obviously this was a volatile relationship to begin with, and the breaking up and the moving back in and the breaking up and moving back in and so forth and so on. It's very rare that these turn out to be sublime in the ending of these things. So,
we're looking, by the way, we're looking at the elevator video. Phil, I think you've been on about this before. What are you seeing here, Phil Waters, with your veteran eye for these things?
Well, it's clear that she's the aggressor. He's doing everything he can do to get her under control without beating her down. He's not thrown a punch or anything yet. It's simply he's trying to use soft hand defensive techniques to try to control her, pushing her off, grabbing her hands, those kinds of things. And she's going after it. I mean, she's right after it. So it's going to be the timeline here. It's going to be hard for her to explain that somehow later on he did something that caused her to have to defend herself with a knife. So this is not good for the defense.
No. Rob D'Amico, you're an agent that was actually get into the mix of things with people like drug dealers and Somali pirates. Aside from this case right now, just what we're watching here, I mean, what if you're in a similar situation where someone is trying to beat on you, whether you're male or female? How do you de-escalate something like we're watching, Rob?
Well, since they're in the elevator, it's hard to separate. Obviously, he like you said, he doesn't throw punches. One way you could try to do it, grab him around that holds her arms down, so that it's not that, like, give him some time. But I don't think she's going to calm down. But it's probably a relationship like that. Like when I first saw this, it came up. I was looking for the other video of the forensic guy testifying, and this came up. And I'm like, wow, he didn't punch her. He gets a couple good pushes in to get away. The key is just to, like, time and space, like, get off on another floor, get away from her. But he probably knows how she does this. And, it's one of those things, but it like Phil said, it's going to be tough to overcome, because she is, even if maybe this is the one time that she was aggressive and it's normally him, that's not on film. That's not what the jury's going to see. They're going to see this. And, she goes after him. She's obviously, she gets in the elevator and starts punching the elevator. So all that's going to have to be overcome, because a video of the, defendant like that, it's going to be tough. Like when they say, well, he was attacking her. There's no video of that, unless something comes out later that we haven't seen somewhere. But I'm sure the, defendant's, counsel is looking for something to show him as the aggressor, even if it's people that say he had a short temper and, maybe he hit somebody else, that they're going to look for, because that video is going to be tough.
Yeah. Phil, to you, when you're investigating a case like this, where, I'm sorry, look at this. The defense now has we just saw this with Sarah Boone. Julie Frew, our mod, she's on top of everything. The defense now has filed an expert, Phil Waters, for what is known as battered partner syndrome. That is what BPS is. That's a defense that a few people, we have a lawyer on named Jessica Mishali, successfully used it. But I was going to ask you, Phil Waters, who's already smirking at that. How do you, number one, when you're investigating a case like this, how do you, what are the indicators between self-defense and it being a deliberate act? Like, how do you know how to look at that?
Well, any case that I entered it objectively, because there's always two sides to a story. And we have a snapshot of one side of the story here. We don't know what's going on off camera. But the autopsy is going to be very important to, because that body is going to talk to you about the wounds that were on the body and explain to you how they got there. So we always hear about, especially when knives are used, that, did the person have defensive wounds, or they did have defensive wounds that would appear that their hands were up. So I would be looking at the autopsy first to see if we have those kind of wounds on him. And I will tell you, if he has those kinds of wounds, it's going to be really hard. I don't care what kind of an expert they bring in there, this battered.
Yeah. Battered spouse or battered partner.
The forensic doctor talked about, because he went over the wounds, the bruising that she had. And then he started making comments at the end of his about 30-minute testimony that the victim did not have defensive wounds, because he was talking about same thing that Phil just talked about, like a knife, and he was more going to the point that that's why he thought it was a throwing knife and not a stabbing because the victim had no defensive wound showing that like she was stabbing and he put his hand up, that it was more of a probable, I think he said favorable, that it was thrown and not stabbed, was one of the things. So he did talk about that on the autopsy photos of lack of what they indicate. But now I think on her wounds or bruising on her forearms and stuff, if I was a prosecutor, I'd say, well, it probably came from the fight that they had in the elevator, because that was very recent to the night that they took pictures of. She had some bruising on her arms and some pressure points. So I think you can go back and forth with them.
Yeah. By the way, she was arrested previously for a DV incident with him. Will the people that witnessed the abuse testify about what they saw? I don't know how much people actually saw, but I know people heard stuff because they were reporting it. And I'm sure that they're going to be subpoenaed. So without further ado, the thumbnail is pigtail, T-A-L-E, or reality. Defense brought on an expert. This was like 3-4 weeks ago. By the way, today's hearing, I believe, was under 4 minutes. So it was a very short thing, and she was not present. And for those who missed it, we covered it for like an hour and a half, but missed it because of me. So it is a Friday. This is the video of this expert giving testimony by throwing knives at a pig carcass. Rich Buddy just said, "What is a pig test?" You're about to find out. It was less than 3 minutes, the COE is saying. This could, I guess, disturb some people. It's a dead pig having knives thrown at it. So here's your warning, and here we go. Let's watch. Oh. Zero. Oh.
Wow.
So the audio is not COE. Do we have the audio? We don't really need it, I guess. But you're seeing here. Let's play that again. So, we're being careful because some of this graph. So she took the audio out. Phil Waters. Oh, you can see the knife. From what I understand, they weren't using the exact knife. There is no audio here.
They said it was the exact knife that they bought. The 6 of the exact knives that was.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the exact type of knife. So. Yeah. This looks like me. First of all, you think this guy maybe get dressed up, but I like it. He's like the John Fetterman of defense experts here. But Rob D'Amico, do you think this is effective? Playing something like this in court?
I think 2 things. When I saw the video, I would have really liked to have them have a person her size throw the knife, because when I look at it, I'm like, well, the guy's like 300 pounds, chucking a knife. There's also a discrepancy in the feet. They're saying that the prosecution said it's 10 feet, and he threw from, I think, 6 feet is the mark where the knife goes, or 5 feet. So they do explain why they do that. The doctor's very good about explaining why they used a pig. And actually, in the special forces and HRT, we actually use pigs to do trauma training for going overseas. Because
how so? Yeah, how do you do
yeah,
that?
so we'd start with the live pig that was under anesthesia, and the doctor would inflict certain wounds on it, and you had to fix it. You had to keep it alive, and it was very intense training, because there's such a difference when you have that. But like when you're practicing to do tracheotomies and stuff like that, the amount of skin and flesh and stuff is very similar to a human. So you get the tone of the pressure you need to do things, especially if you're doing like a needle decompression, all those things. And then they actually, start, it's come under some protest, but they start shooting the pig, and you have to fix it. They'll blow it up, and then you have to do things. So the fact that the doctor talks about why they chose a pig is very relevant in the video. And I think it is good to see the video. I think, like I said, I would have rather have someone smaller instead of this large knife throwing guy. And I'm not sure what a great knife throwing expert he is, because a couple of them don't even stick in.
Yeah.
But they throw it a number of times. And then the other thing they talk about is that the actual depth, they measure the depth of the knife being thrown, and one of them goes in 5 inches, and the actual wound is only 3.5 inches. So they prove that a knife could, because of the prosecutor saying a thrown knife could not do that in fact, that injury that caused death. And I think this is going to that point. I think it's a very effective video. Like I said, I just would have liked to seen someone her size throw it, because I think then the mental impression. Now, this was to the judge, not a jury, and I think the judge has a different take on it, that just trying to go to manslaughter, you know, because it's possible that her story of throwing the knife against the prosecution, saying that it was a stab from the back or something.
So Phil Waters, a couple of issues I have. Well, first of all, I've got to ask you this. Phil, what is the strangest exhibit that you've ever seen inside a courtroom? There's got to be some odd things that you've seen.
Oh, I remember a case where the prosecutor brought in the bed where the victim had been tied to in the promise of some sort of sex act, and then had one of the prosecutors lay on the bed, and then the other prosecutor climbed on top of him to show exactly what happened to the jury. That was pretty unusual.
That sounds interesting. Phil Waters. So I'm just going to bring up the video for one more second. I mean, we're watching this. I'm no retired homicide detective, but not only everything is slow on my end. Let's see if this will work. Yes, this will work. So, I mean, Phil, look at this guy, not this guy, not that guy, this guy. This guy should have his own YouTube channel. But Phil, this is purported to be self-defense. The defense says that she flung the knife from 10 feet away, but she was on the ground. This guy is whatever. It looks like he's 6'8". It looks like he's big as Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, this seems, what is this telling us, if anything? She was on the ground, totally different trajectory. If you're investigating this, or if you're an investigator and you see the defense doing this, are you just thinking to yourself, geez, this is just total BS here? Waste of time?
Well, I think I saw this guy on America's Got Talent. I think that's right. He didn't make the final cut, but I will tell you, defense attorneys and prosecutors, even when they get into these demonstrations, I have never seen one that has really been effective. And I've seen that on both sides. To try to recreate what happened is very difficult to do, even under the best circumstances. And if I'm with Ron, you know, having this guy demonstrate that, yeah, the big boy can throw knives into a pig carcass, that really just demonstrates that he has the ability to do that. I don't think it shows, I agree with Ron. I mean, they should have had somebody in there that was a female, the same size, structure as the defendant here, and have her do this. And try to actually recreate the scene rather than just give you a lesson on throwing knives into a pig. So I don't know how effective these things really are. I mean, they're and I'm not trying to be flippant, they're kind of entertaining. And juries like to see these things. They want to see something that's tangible. You know, when they start talking about DNA and all this stuff, they want to see pictures. They want to see, how does this stuff, how did it look? So from that perspective, it's good, but I just don't think it's going to be effective in trying to defend her, especially if the knife wounds are in the back, which would explain why he had no defensive wounds.
Yeah, it pierced an artery.
When you get down to this manslaughter discussion, it's going to be the difference between intent and being reckless. So to say that, given the video that we've actually seen of her and him, that they're going to have the defense is going to have a hard time trying to explain away her intent. Why would she throw a knife at him if that's what she did? Why would she attack him with a knife if she didn't intend to kill him with the knife? So that's, using a knife is very personal. It's up close, and it's not like a firearm where you can say that the weapon went off while they were handling it and it killed the person, and it was not an act of intent. It was an act of being reckless. So that's the difference here. It's very tough. I think it's going to be very tough to define what she did with a knife as being reckless. So I think they got a tough road to hoe here. I don't care how many demonstrations they show on video of throwing knives into pig carcasses.
Yeah. By the way, this defense attorney has made some crazy allegations, including that this guy was involved in sex trafficking, which there's absolutely zero evidence of. So that's
it doesn't mean anything. They're trying to deflect. I mean, with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. But there's also body cam footage that I think the COE is going to pull up, and there's also a 911 call I'm going to get to in a minute. But Rob D'Amico, back to you for a minute. The ME, the medical examiner, ruled that the death came because of a knife wound that punctured the subclavian artery in the right side of his chest, which the ME says would never have happened from a knife being thrown from that distance. Someone else pointed out that pig thrower is also like about 6 feet away, if that, and she was 10 feet away. This guy, this is not Dr. John Marachini, but I think he was the guy you see at the very beginning, and he's quoted as saying, simply put, I was asked to investigate and review evidence as to whether a throwing knife, specifically the knife involved in this particular case, could penetrate and inflict a wound found on Mr. Obumseli. I think the last one stuck, but not in the pig's neck. Despite all of this from Buttercup, Rob, what is the importance here or not of the knife being thrown versus stabbed in terms of a self-defense case?
I think they're going that she was on the ground, and out of fear, she had this knife and she just threw it. And it hit him in the chest. I mean, that's kind of where they're trying to go with this. The other way that the medical examiner, state medical examiner, is saying that she came up behind him and reached around him and stabbed based on the wound, which would be that's in more the second degree murder, as opposed to she's on the ground in fear of her life and just throws a knife. And now everyone's saying, well, like it's one of those things, like she'd have to, like, he's a knife expert and he's not even hitting. But I've seen some crazy, and unfortunately it happens to police. I've seen when police are chasing someone, the bad guy just shoots over his shoulder, not looking, and it happens to go in the 2 inches of unprotected by the bulletproof vest and clips an artery and dies. It's never a shot that anyone could reproduce. So the fact is, if she was on the ground and she just was scared and threw this knife as hard as she could and it happened to hit him in this great spot, I mean, that's one of the things that they're going for, because if she did it the other way, then they really don't have, the case. So they're like, it's the Hail Mary. If it's, Washington Red or Commanders got one the other day. And that's what they're kind of going for, because I don't think they have anything else to base it on. So it's either, and I think they're going to go back and forth between the forensic doctor who talked about it, saying that this knife thrown at a distance could do the wound that killed him, is just the first thing on their side of the story. And again, trying to get it to reduce to manslaughter. She may, at that point, that the lawyer, if they get it reduced to manslaughter, may tell her, like, hey, take the deal, instead of, maybe they're just trying to go that route to get it knocked down, so she's not going to spend the rest of her life in jail, so to speak.
Well, the big difference here with this knife business, if she's laying on the ground and throwing it, then she's got to present this explanation that he is standing over her. And
I think they were saying that he was going to come after her and to defend.
What I'm saying is, her on the ground and she throws the knife. What is she doing on the ground with the knife? I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff here about this story that just doesn't compute.
Yeah.
So it's not the same, the scenario that, the gun over the shoulder kind of thing. These knives, and we all know, I mean, again, like I've already said, these are up close and personal weapons. These are not at a distance weapons. You don't find people. I tell you, all the homicides that I worked, that knives were involved. I never had one where they're throwing the knife at somebody.
I was going to ask.
I mean,
that.
they're in on them, and in typical case, and this one here, you would have to look at the angle that knife went into the chest, and the possible explanation that she did come over the top and drove it in that direction is completely that is certainly more believable and more of a valid explanation than I'm laying on the ground and I threw the knife at him. I had a case where a female walked up to a guy while he was looking away, and he was swinging a baseball bat at her. He swung the bat at her.
Oh, Rob, you still have. Oh, that was Phil. Go ahead, Phil. Better you to break up than me. Go ahead, Phil.
One shot in the chest, and that did it. But I can tell you, and it was her intent to kill him. So I just don't buy the knife throwing. The wound itself can be explained. The defense attorneys they've got a long road to hoe, I think, to explain how she administers the death blow. And I just, the knife throwing and the pig stuff, and I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah,
just looking at it objectively, I don't see how you can
explain
explain it that way.
Phil's not buying
a bunch of comments. I'm not saying that this. I'm just saying what the defense attorneys.
D'Amico, you can never read the comments. Going to ruin your life. Didn't Joe Rogan teach you that? Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like,
I didn't know. Did somebody say something?
Yeah.
I wasn't disagreeing with Rob. I was commenting about what he said about what they're saying.
No, I think
I wasn't disagreeing with Rob. I was just commenting on.
No. Some of the comments are like, I believe the story. But they did.
Oh, well, don't read all that crap, Rob.
The forensic pathologist.
When do you get the comments on the playback?
Oh, I read those too.
By the way, I feel so manly sitting between two alpha male Marines here who literally just hunted people. Anyway, go ahead, Rob. That's my own instinct.
So the actually forensic pathologist that they got actually is also a knife thrower for 30 plus years. So they found this one forensic pathologist who happens to be into knife throwing. But he was also actually at one point started talking about the trajectory of a thrown knife and how it could actually make it look like so it was coming down based on the trajectory. Like, again, they've taken everything that the prosecution has said and has this one, expert witness trying to say it's all possible in their situation, which that's what you're going to do. But they do talk about that. And then they talk about that there was no slippage. Like, she had no, and a lot of times in a knife fight, you will cut yourself too. And I think Phil probably put that in there, and there were none. And then he also talked about on the wound on the victim, there was no, normally if you stab, I guess, a lot of times where the blade and the handle come together will leave a mark on the body, and that mark wasn't there. But again, if the knife doesn't have to go all the way in, obviously it's not going to be there. But they're trying to, with this one witness, trying to say everything that they say is possible from what they're saying through this one expert knife throwing forensic pathologist.
Well, I tell you, so how many puncture wounds do we have?
Just
as far,
one.
yeah, as far as I know, it's just a one.
From
to
what I
the
could tell,
chest.
just one.
Yeah.
We've got one. This isn't a knife fight. So I've worked cases. I've worked cases where we have had, it's typical when a person uses a knife with the intent to kill somebody that it is multiple wounds. And Rob is exactly right. And in most of those cases, I have found where they have self-inflicted a wound, because typical, they're putting their hand up and they're doing this, and they clip the web of their hand, or they clip a finger or something. So that is righteous. All of that is. But this is not a knife fight. This is a single puncture wound that she administered in a fit of anger and killed this guy. Hit him in the right spot.
And I think it goes, I think that goes to the prosecution, that she did it from behind. And just
so the defense attorneys, and I do a lot of I do a lot of expert witness testimony, and I can tell you that it comes down to, now when I do it, I talk about the evidence and where it led me to be and why I have this opinion. So I do what I do, and I do as a homicide cop. I let the evidence lead me where I need to be, and it's always a journey for the truth. And I tell defense attorneys that I work for, I'm not a hired gun. I'm not going to get up there and just talk about all these possibilities. What I'm going to tell you is where the evidence led me, and here's my opinion and why I came to this conclusion. And I'm going to give you the good, bad, and the ugly. Now, a lot of these guys that work for these defense attorneys that are experts, and this guy, I don't know him, but if he's putting out these possibilities, because the first thing a defense attorney is going to ask a guy like me, a homicide cop, is, isn't it possible, blah, blah, blah. And my response has either been one of two things. Either I will just say blatantly, no, not possible. Or I will say, well, they say that anything is possible, but the evidence in this case makes it highly improbable.
Yeah.
So there's always a way. The prosecution, I think the defense is grasping at straws, and I think the jury, I mean, you never know what a jury is going to do, but it sounds to me as though the prosecution has the truth in their favor, and they have the evidence. So they're the ones that have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, not the defense. The defense doesn't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove that their client didn't do it, but they have to present an argument that gives reasonable doubt. So I just don't think that the pig, I wonder if the guy ate the pig after he got through throwing the deal. But so the pig guy and this possibilities of this expert that they have on the stand, I don't think it's going to cloud the truth of the evidence. So I get it. I mean, I get why they're doing what they're doing, but again, it's going to be. I mean, the angle. Yeah, you could throw it and possibly get the angle. And I don't know. That's to me. I mean, to me, that's just that's.
Yeah,
that's the defense grasping at straws, man.
Yeah, I think when they put it in front of a jury and that like every single lucky thing had to happen, just puts more doubt that all of those happened at the same time. Like I said, I think right now them trying to get it to reduce the manslaughter through this with the judge, who's definitely a different than a jury, as you know. You don't have to do things the same at all. She's going to look just at the facts and say, yeah, I guess it is possible maybe, and then reduce the charges. And then they're like telling her to take a plea to the manslaughter, because you're never going to, be able to prove that or get that conviction, not guilty in court. That may be the plot.
Could be the Vesper Martini is in Miami. I'm assuming Joel will be reporting live from the courthouse. I will. There's still no trial date, but I will be there.
I might have to go down there with you.
Yeah, I was just going to invite you, Rob.
We'll have lunch, find a good Cuban place like we've been going.
Yeah, 100%. Come on down, Rob D'Amico. So this woman, Courtney Clenney, was a bodybuilder. She's a strong woman, 5'8". Someone here said, by the way, the knife was 3.5 inches deep, roughly, or 3 1/4 inches. She didn't have any cuts on her hands because it was one stab wound, says Jenny Allison. I think if he saw her coming, he would have held his hands up to defend himself. The from behind makes sense because she was 5'8". So interesting, and sounds like that could be a possibility. Now, Phil Waters, after this happens, she calls mommy. And I think they talk a couple times before she actually calls 911. Does that raise your antennae as a retired homicide detective? And then we're going to play the call for you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, your spider sense goes off with why would you call mom? Hey, mom, I just juked my freaking boyfriend. What do I need to do now? I mean, come on. So I'm just telling you the affirmative links I'm seeing in this case. I can't imagine them offering her a plea because their case is very strong. And so I think she's, calling mommy is just like, oh crap, I screwed up.
Rob D'Amico, quickly on this, and I'll play the 911 call again from Jenny Allison. Would any of you think, yes, it could be self-defense if you heard her say she was 10 feet away and threw the knife because she says he made an angry gesture towards her without a weapon? I don't know what kind of gesture you could make, like this, but I mean, what? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I think the only one, like you said, the only way you're going to go a self-defense for throwing a knife is actually if he's got a, gun pointed at her,
which he didn't.
Other than that, it's one of those things, but there's probably not much else to go on. So like I said, Hail Mary, throw it up.
Yeah. See what happens. COE, I don't know which one of these is a 911 call, and I'm having trouble. Can you play it on your side, please? If you're not with the kids, if you're there. Look at the COE. I catch her every show. I catch her. She's not even here. Let me see.
Probably did eat that pig after, because they talked about that the video was shot in South Carolina, so they got some good barbecue down there. They probably did not waste that pig carcass.
Yeah, definitely.
They probably had the smoker right outside the
yeah. That guy brought the smoker.
Depends on what they were doing with the pig before. My son was a human intel officer in the Marines, and he went through that course that you're talking about. He was telling me about the pigs and they'd go in and fix the pig, and pigs are very similar to humans in their internal organs there. So that's very interesting. I didn't mean to throw that in there, but
I think
I'm reminded.
That training saved lives. I remember the first time. When that blood stopper came out like that, you pour in the wound and it cauterizes it. I thought you just poured it on there, but you don't. You pour it on and then you got to hold it on, and it gets really hot. So lucky the first time I did it wasn't in combat because it was in training. So I mean that pig training, although
it almost like cauterizes the artery, right?
That's exactly what it does. Yeah. But you have to apply like some decent pressure, it gets hot. Right. So if the first time you're doing it is in combat and you just pour it on, the blood just pushes it totally off.
Sure.
You got to hold it on. So the training was invaluable. It was literally amazing, but it got a lot of protests.
Oh yeah.
First time,
kind of weird, but I mean, he really enjoyed it. It was really, it was very. He went to the Helmand province and all that stuff, and worked the human intel aspects of it. But pretty cool training. Sorry to get off the track.
No. First time I ever cauterized someone was in Nam back in '68. It was during a crazy firefight. Anyway, sorry. So this is a part that Rob D'Amico and Phil like the most. We didn't show you this, but the video also features this expert witness sticking his fingers into the carcass and twisting a knife in it to ensure that the tissue was comparable to human tissue and to try to find the accessory mark. We spared you guys that. So she calls 911 after the mom. I'm not sure which of these. So we're going to either see some body cam footage or a 911 call here, one or the other. It's, I don't know, a game of roulette.
Good evening, please.
This is 3 minutes long.
Ma'am, listen to me. You need to stop screaming on the line and give me the address.
3101. I can't feel my arm. 3101. I can't feel my arm.
Ma'am.
So my boyfriend is dying of a stab.
Ma'am, what is the address?
What's that? What's the address, baby? 3131 Northeast 7th Ave. Please, God, please. Come see my boyfriend.
Ma'am, is this a house apartment or a business?
512-745-2582.
Is this a house apartment or a business?
Baby, I'm so sorry. Baby.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
If you have a stab wound to his shoulder, can you sit down?
What do you mean he has a stab wound on his shoulder, ma'am?
Yeah, he's bleeding from his shoulder.
Rescue, this is PD Physician Juliet. The caller, ma'am, hold on one moment. The caller advised the address is 3131 Northeast 7th Avenue.
I'm going to stop it right there. It's about halfway through. Phil
Notice
Water.
she says it's a stab wound. She didn't even say it's from, like, would you describe, like, if you threw a knife, like a knife wound, but she actually calls it a stab wound on the 911 call.
Yeah, I mean, what's so chilling about this is you hear him saying, "I can't feel my arm, my left arm." I think he's saying.
Well, in the business, what we would call that is an admission. So this is great. She's already getting ahead of the homicide detective that's going to have to listen to this stuff. So she's already made an admission about what she just did. And Rob's right. She describes a stab wound. She doesn't say, "I threw the knife at him and it hit him." So that's awesome.
You would think to say, "Oh my God, I
great...
threw the knife. I didn't mean to hit him. It hit him." Like I always, unfortunately, I tell people, like, when something happens, your 911 tape's admissible. You're not in custody, so everything you say on that. Like if I ever had to shoot someone in my, like if someone breaks in my house, I shoot him. I was in fear of my life. I shot him. Please send medical attention, and the police would show up, and I'd be doing CPR, so that in their police report it'd be like, "Oh yeah, I was doing CPR," even though like maybe I shot him in the head. But like that's your first interaction.
Rob, you'd give him way more information than I would. I would just simply say, "I just shot this guy in my house. You need to send an ambulance." So we'll talk about the details. We'll talk about the details later.
Yeah,
I'll throw in there I was in fear of my life just to get that one in there, because that's But in Florida, you guys can shoot anyone who walks in your house.
Yeah, Texas and Florida, you guys are fine. Don't worry about it. You're in New York City, you're in trouble. But Texas, New York, you're absolutely fine. All right, let's keep listening. This is literally, I mean, this is so depressing. This is, by the way, Ned Smith's hilarious. Knives are sharp. She is not sharp. I would agree with that. Here, poor dog. We're a dog-friendly show here, but this is a guy. This is a guy who's literally dying, taking his last moments on this earth. Here we go. Rob will get your take after this.
Northeast 7th Avenue. The phone number is verified. The caller advised that her boyfriend has a stab wound. Okay, is this a house, apartment, or a business?
Listen, please, God, please, please, God,
Listen, ma'am. I'm sending help. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. I'm sending help. How old is he? Ma'am, how old is he? Is he awake? Hello? Hello? PD, are you still on the line? Yes, you're still on the line. She didn't provide a room number or anything. No, did she tell you where he was stabbed at? She said he was stabbed on his shoulder. Okay. Do you know if there's more than one wound? No, she didn't say. She just kept screaming on the line saying that he was dying, that he needed help, and she kept apologizing. But we do have a call at that same address in reference to a fight that happened. The room number could possibly be 2201, because we already have a call that two people are fighting inside of that room. So they're possibly related.
And that's a 911 call. And there were people who heard, obviously, fighting going on there. Rob D'Amico, when you consider the fact that she called her mother, and I think it was more than one time prior to calling 911, I don't know. Does it become more? Is she playing to the call? Is what I'm trying to say. She's being very dramatic, but she would have had some time to talk to her mom, right? So this sounds like it's an immediate reaction, but it's not. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it isn't. So yeah, she called her mom, or why, since he was still alive, why didn't she call 911 first? Is going to come out, all those things, and then it could have been, yeah, oh my God, I got a call and make it sound like I'm in shock, and I'm trying to get him help and everything else, but normally you would call 911 first, instead of your mom. Unless your mom's like a nurse or a doctor, and you're trying to figure out how to best put pressure on the wound so it doesn't bleed out or something. But that's not going to happen. Prosecution's going to use that big time.
I tell you what, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I thought what was interesting was him in the background, and this I'm dying. I didn't detect any anger, which is really, to me, was kind of striking. It wasn't like, hey, you so-and-so, you stabbed me, that kind of thing. It was, I'm dying. So, and I think, and then when you connect the video in the elevator, this guy's demeanor doesn't. I mean, he's trying to keep her away, and he's trying to run away from her, and she's chasing him down. And then we get to the point where he is stabbed, and what we hear on the 911 tape is, "I'm dying."
Yeah.
So I think his demeanor is consistent throughout this whole thing, which again, the defense is going to have a hard time explaining that somehow this guy went crazy in that one moment and she had to defend herself. I mean, it just doesn't. It's a hard story to sell.
Yeah. And by the way, this is, again, the timeline. April 2nd, he moves back in April 1st. April 2nd, PD respond to a call. Clenney kicks him out their apartment again, asks for this restraining order. April 3rd, Clenney calls her mother, says she heard, the mother says she heard shouting, and Clenney told Christian to leave. At 4:57, Clenney calls 911 after he was stabbed. And to Phil's point, I mean, again, this video is so disturbing because he's going to die the next day, which is just, if it ever plays, but it's horrific. I mean, it truly is why we never, I'm just going to take it off. It's horrific.
So I didn't realize. So he dies the next day.
Yeah.
So was he not able to tell the detective that? I didn't see that in there.
I think it was this. I think the video, Julie Frew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this video is taken the day before the knife. It's not playing right now, but the elevator.
The date's on the video.
Oh, you mean he dies
21st?
So he dies the day he's stabbed,
what?
though. Like
yes. And you know what?
Oh, I thought okay, then the police didn't get a chance to talk to him. But no, yeah, he died the next day after the elevator video.
Yeah, and Julie Frew here saying it is. Yes, he dies on a 3rd, and she's saying this is from the 2nd. I think there's other video lurking around that's from earlier, but Phil Waters, again, you guys are all about building your cases, and so one of the things that's somewhat interesting is that the parents were charged as well. Now, they've since had their charges dropped, but the name, it's Kim, Dwayne, and Deborah Clenney. They were allegedly trying to break in to this guy's laptop, who, according to warrant, the mother was asking, are there any PIN/passwords we can try before you see her tomorrow. I don't know who exactly they were talking to there. And then they're rejoicing that a pin worked. So what about this fact, this bad fact, Phil, that the parents are now, by the way, they're pretty well off, and the parents now are trying to hack into this guy's computer. What is that telling you with your history of
Well, if the
investigation?
parents are hacking into his computer, I don't know. That may be something. That may be a charge that they're maybe looking at. I mean, did the detectives did not seize his laptop, or is this before? What's the timeline on the laptop stuff?
Yeah, this is I think after the fact. And I don't know why it would not have been seized, but Julie Fruit, please correct me on that if I'm wrong about that one. But I think this is yeah, they took his laptop. I'm not exactly sure of the complete timeline. I'm looking here. Mike's saying she didn't stab her sugar baby. She threw a knife at him and it stuck in his chest near his heart. That's one person. They took his laptop, meaning the parents. It's not exactly sure precisely when they took it. But the charges have since been dropped. So it's kind of crazy. I think we also have
well, so what, let me so the parents were charged with tampering. Is that
here we go. Yeah, and the police never took the laptop. So there you go.
So, but the parents were charged with tampering with evidence?
They were charged, and then the charges were dropped.
Were dropped? Okay,
yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So the elevator video is from months before the body cam
that was
footage.
in February.
Yeah, and the body cam footage is from the day before. COE, I'm going to hit this. I'm assuming this is the body cam. Let's watch this one.
Actually, not having a good day, where I actually literally want to kill you, but you don't take me seriously.
So that was just something I think the COE pulled off of
not having a good day, where I actually literally want to kill you, but you don't take me seriously.
One more time. So this is audio off of his phone.
Not having a good day, where I actually literally want to kill you, but you don't take me seriously.
Phil, she's telling him there, I want to kill you and you don't take me seriously. He should probably, yeah. What do you?
I think I read where he was recording conversations with her.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that was? I mean,
yeah.
He was. Look, I mean, she must have had some unusual talents for this guy to stick around with her. And if he gets to the point where he is recording the things that she's saying to him, he's got to have some sort of fear that he's going to be needing to use this later. And it's unfortunate that he waited too long. So, again, you take the elevator video from February, then you jump to April. You got all these recordings that he made of her in between. Again, I just don't think you're going to convince a jury that this was not intentional. Going to have a really tough to say this was, and it sounds to me like the defense is trying to explain this as being some sort of reckless, at the moment kind of a deal. And I just, again, in my opinion, the evidence leads to an intentional act on her part.
There you go. Phil's always following the evidence.
Yeah, I think that's huge that he recorded her saying, and she mentioned killing him.
Yeah.
So that in itself, you go with the second degree, a lot easier than the manslaughter. Like I said, I think it's a really tough uphill battle for the defense to get that reduced down.
Yeah. Rob D'Amico, what about like these prior bad acts? She was arrested for DV, this thing in the elevator. You think that's going to be suppressed, or you think that's going to come in during?
There's going to be a fight over it. I mean, defense obviously doesn't want that in there. but prosecution does. And I think, you know, especially if you're looking at the second degree murder, I think they're going to probably be able to keep it in because it does actually show her aggression towards him, how he is, you know, not aggressive back to her. Like Phil said, it's seen in the videos, and then even like on the 911 call, lack of aggression. So I think they'll be able to keep it in. Defense is going to fight really hard to keep it out.
Phil, what percentage of your cases would the person that you would arrest or apprehend claim self-defense? Was it? I'd imagine it was very small.
No, gosh, I couldn't even begin to guess. I don't, not a true self-defense kind of thing. It was more of a, we're talking about manslaughter stuff here. Again, I go back to intent and reckless. Trying to explain it that way, not necessarily a defense. I had a case where the suspect, the defendant, choked, strangled, manual strangulation. And in telling his story, he said that he was cleaning up a mess on the floor that their 3-year-old little boy had made. And she, while he was cleaning it up, was talking to him, questioning his manhood and so forth and so on, and then punched him while he's on his knees cleaning this up. And then he, of course, says that, you know, and I said, well, what did you do? And blah, blah, blah. Well, she ran off into the bedroom. Well, he later on went in there and ended up killing her. But so not necessarily a self-defense type thing, but more of a explaining what I did. And it was in the heat of passion and that kind of a thing, which would drop it back to the reckless manslaughter type thing. I just don't think she's got, I know I keep saying it, but oh my gosh, every time we see a piece of evidence, I think this chick's going to get hammered.
Yeah, I agree. Black Widow.
No pun intended. No pun intended.
Please, men, reach out to your local men's DV centers. You see, she spells it RES because she's from the Republic of Ireland. Yeah, Caitlin Armstrong's another one. Right here, that was the one, the threesome with the bicyclists. So another lovely woman here who then tried to evade police by running away while she was cuffed. All right, so this is apparently the body cam. This will be the last thing we watch. We get some comments, and then on to some of the depressing, weird, and funny stories of the week because we're not depressed enough. Here you go.
Walking around the property, and we need to have a renewal. Last time we saw him, he was on the ground level.
Okay.
So
Just let me know my chances to talk. I'm not trying to
get into your apartment.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, but you told me I was
Time out. Let me talk. Okay.
I feel very like.
What's your name? Corny?
Yes.
Okay, Corny.
Why do you have something against me, man? Like I'm just trying to like.
What is anything against you?
It seems like
we're
you
trying
don't
to talk. So you just want to get back in your apartment. Unfortunately, he can't be here in the property.
That is totally fine.
Okay.
So he's been literally sleeping in my elevator room without permission.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna find him so he can leave the property and you get back to your apartment. What else do you need?
I was told I was gonna get a chance to speak.
Go ahead, Corny. What's going on?
Now's your turn.
Are you gonna listen?
We're listening. Go ahead.
Did you say something wrong?
Yes. Yes, they're all three here. Okay, so.
Corny, what do you have?
Did she get back to her?
I'm gonna hold it right there, about halfway through right now. Phil Waters, have at it.
Well, first of all, these officers, her holding a cell phone, I'm assuming that's her mom on the phone or somebody.
I would assume it's her
talking
mom.
to the officers while she's on the phone, talking to her and whoever's on that phone. And I'm just saying, she's got to get off the phone. You cannot conduct a field interview or a field investigation while this girl is on the phone talking to somebody else. And so this is one, and she obviously, she's a spoiled brat. She wants to be in control of everything. Oh, woe is me. And you know, the officers are handling it in the way that they're letting her talk. They're letting her just go. And, you know, the other officer, I think she says, well, he's, you know, yeah, go ahead and, you know, so forth and so on. But she's too busy trying to control the environment. And it's just totally out of control for her. And they're not going to allow her to do this. So it's interesting just to watch the dynamics of this particular interview. And this is occurring on the 2nd of April.
This is the day before.
This is right before
the day before
the stabbing.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So I had it wrong. The elevator video is from February. The body cam video is from the day before, which is what we're watching right now, obviously courtesy of Court TV.
So this, again, you know, again, it's always important in a homicide investigation, you put together a timeline. And so this little addition to the timeline is awesome.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing the buildup to what eventually occurs. We're seeing it in real time here, where she was at when this thing started to build.
Yeah.
I know I keep saying it, but oh my gosh, they are not going to they cannot unring this bell.
Yeah. And again, with the self-defense thing, you think if it was a period of like him hitting her and stuff like that, she would have said something during this interview. And again, it's going to go to that bigger uphill battle of, you know, going self-defense. She didn't mention anything about it. I haven't seen the end of this, but if she doesn't mention anything about it here, you know, when she's with 3 police officers, then, you know, why are we going to believe that all of a sudden this guy who hasn't shown violence that one day changed?
It's an interesting point by Mike here. She made tons of money on OnlyFans. I didn't know this, but I guess they were reportedly having explicit sex on OnlyFans. But her boyfriend made next to nothing. He was like a crypto guy. Everyone in Miami's a crypto guy. She kicked him out, then invited him back. She had all the control, as she had all the money. We live in a crazy world. That's all I can say. Like my kids watch, I'm going on a tangent now because I'm about to digress and get angry, but my kids will watch a guy named Ben Azerlot. The kid's like 23 years old, lives in like a $50 million mansion because he's making $100 million a year on YouTube, making the stupidest videos you've ever seen, with guys getting 30 million. I'm going to get all worked up. Right? 30 million views on YouTube for complete idiocy. And that is the capitalistic world we live in. So kudos to Ben. And Phil, how much money were you making on YouTube when you were 21, Phil?
When I was 21, YouTube didn't exist.
Yeah. I think when you were 41, YouTube didn't exist, or 51. I don't know. But crazy with the money these guys.
Yeah, some of the, like I saw a video the other day of this kid's in a gym and he's making a TikTok video, and there's this guy, he's pretty big, and he grabs his LA Dodger hat off his head, and the guy's like pissed, and he's like, give me my hat. As the kid gets close, he just slaps him across the head and takes his hat back. And it's kind of like, you know, again, it's these TikTokers just trying to get like clicks by doing annoying things on videos. And this dude was not having any of it. I laughed. I watched that thing over and over about 20 times, just seeing this kid get slapped like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like Mike Tyson slapping Jake Paul.
Yeah.
That fight's tonight.
I'm so afraid that
Mike Tyson knocks him out.
Now we've gone off the. I'm afraid Tyson's going to get. I'm terrified he's going to get knocked out. I don't want to see Mike Tyson get knocked out. But this guy, he's actually a pretty good boxer.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson's 58 years old.
They're both pretty obnoxious.
As Vespers let us now know that we've gone completely off. That's okay. It's Friday. We always go off track. On Friday, there was I was forced to take my kids to see Blippi. He actually had a show. Blippi is another YouTube guy. You know about this, Phil Waters? It's a guy. COE, can you pull up a photo of Blippi? He's some like creepy dude who walks around in orange suspenders and one of those hats with a propeller on it, and he does kid stuff. Like he's like jumps onto swings and he goes down slides. Well, one day I'm at CVS and there's a Blippi doll, and I wanted to literally just suck on my exhaust. After that, I couldn't handle. These people are unreal. And then I read about Blippi. It's Blippi with an I, Blippi, Ned Smith. But this guy just bought himself like a $29 million home in Beverly Hills as Blippi.
Only thing I had to do when my kids are older, my oldest is 28. And I took her, I think it was like 5 different times to see the Jonas Brothers. And she won backstage passes. So, and she was young. I met the Jonas Brothers like 3 times with her. But that's probably better than Blippi though.
Yeah. Blippi was torture. My kid at one point, she doesn't want a copyright issue. You can't even show a picture of him. That's whatever. You get the idea. Is a nerdy guy, could or could not be a child. Whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, he wears a propeller on the top of his hat. And he's just disturbing. But he lives in the $30 million mansion, and I don't. So there you go. Okay, so we're back to thank God it's Friday. This is the Rob. We didn't get your take completely on this, but we'll watch the rest of this and get both you guys to comment. Then we'll get to some of the weird news and call it a day.
Hold on. It took me a long time to let them talk to me, so hold on. No, can you please just listen?
Just talk to them. I want to talk to him. Courtney, what's going on? What do you need?
Okay, can you
What?
My boyfriend. I hate him. Like, he hasn't paid any attention to me. I don't care. I'll hold it down. I broke up with him about a week ago. I had my mom fly out. She stayed with me for a week. She tried to like get him out, and he kept sleeping in the elevator inside of my like extra couch. And somehow I said, okay, Mom, like it's cool for you to go home today. I think I got it from here. I literally like took her to the airport this morning. I stayed in my apartment all day. I didn't take my dogs out for like 8 hours. Because I was afraid that when I came down here, I was going to beat him. And when I did come down.
I'm just going to say it. She comes across as a total psycho. Rob D'Amico, I mean, I would be running from this person. But here in Miami, you're in bikini, blonde, you're an Instagram model, and they attract men. I mean, what does that video, the tail end of that, tell you?
Well, she started laying out that she was afraid on a couple things. So she does get that in there, but I didn't see or hear. It's kind of tough to hear on. I didn't hear specifics about him hit her. She said she was afraid to come down if he was still there and stuff, but it doesn't to me look like it's at that point, but I'm sure both the defense and prosecution, as Phil knows, they're going to take the exact same footage and make it sound like it fits their story as opposed to the other one. But that's that's where you're getting a jury. You got to convince them your side is the way to take it. And some people may look at it that way, and some people will be like us and be very cynical about it. And it's just a matter of trying to turn that many people into believing your side. I think it's going to be tough, but that's what they're going to try to do.
By the way, people are not going to believe this, but for full disclosure, I've never, ever, ever been on OnlyFans, because some people are asking me, is it a what kind of site? And I think it is, but it doesn't have to be. I have no idea. But
yeah, because I think Whitney Cummings, the comedian, has an OnlyFans.
Yeah, I think
she can do her comedy, and it's just a way to get subscriptions to that.
Well, that OnlyFans thing, everybody's on that freaking thing now.
Yeah, like I know
actresses and all.
They can make some serious money though, like that.
A lot of these has-been actresses.
Yeah,
nobody watches anymore. They get on OnlyFans, and now they got people paying them all sorts of money to watch them. whatever they're doing on there.
But I
think
think
this gal was the the image of virtue on her OnlyFans site. But I was asking about why he even sticks around for this. Well, it's the money. They're generating a lot of freaking money off of this OnlyFans thing.
Oh yeah, there's some people making 100,000 a month.
Yeah,
and I think it was what really turned it was the hip hop artist that showed her OnlyFans thing, and I think it was like $10 million or something. Like it was crazy. And then during COVID, it started getting really jacked up with couples getting on there and making $300,000-$400,000 a year.
I think she was making close to $1 million a year on there. But look, this is true. This is America. This person says, but those OnlyFans models are entrepreneurs. Yeah.
I like the fact, like, hey, if you're going to do it, at least it's going to, like, I think in the old days in the porn industry, when you look at it, like the actresses weren't making that much money, or at least, I think OnlyFans takes 20% and the creator gets 80%, but it is again, changing society to a point.
Well, look, she's a titty dancer on your monitor, and you don't have to go and put dollar bills into her G-string. So
Phil has such a great way.
So you're safe. You've got that degree of safety, right? So
hey, COE, I'm going to check our browser history for
she made
OnlyFans.
$3 million.
It wasn't me, COE. It wasn't me.
Well, that's why he stuck around.
Yeah. Exactly.
Plus, whatever she was, greatly gifted.
Cost him his life. So
yeah.
What?
I wonder if she keeps her OnlyFans going in prison. Remember what were we talking about? That wasn't there a podcast? Someone's doing a podcast out of prison.
It was Suge Knight. Suge Knight.
Yeah, Suge Knight's doing. So maybe she's doing OnlyFans out of prison.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, good for her. That'll be an interesting OnlyFans thing. Yeah.
So Rob D'Amico, you haven't done Fridays with Phil and Scott. You're Scott today, so we're gonna just whiz through some stories alternating between you and Phil. The first one here, Phil, we've actually done this. After her arrest, her salary has plummeted to $327,000.
Oh yeah, it's breaking my heart.
She made $3 million in 3 years on OnlyFans. Wow. Okay. Phil Waters, the husband of Anna Knisevich. You will recall the story. This is a woman who is Colombian. They're both from South Florida. Where else? He's Serbian. She goes off to Spain. Well, this guy, she has never been found. She goes missing. Police think that he went to Spain somehow, had a motorcycle helmet, even though he was in a car. Anyway, he was indicted Wednesday on charges of foreign domestic violence resulting in death and foreign murder of a United States national. Her body's never been found. He's been in federal custody. The family says this is a step in the right direction to mourn while we continue to search for answers and honor Anna's memory by advocating for her story to be told and for accountability to prevail. Another sick dude who he was apparently worried about. They shared a business together, maybe losing some money. But Phil, why now do you think, after all this time has passed, that they finally charge him with foreign murder of a United States national?
Yeah, I'm assuming this is a federal indictment.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they waited until they had the case. They wanted to make sure that when they go to indict this guy, they want to make sure. And remember, indictments are they only have to present probable cause for an indictment. Mm-hmm. So they have made the case stronger over this period of time, and have now the timing is right to go in and indict this guy and make him be held accountable.
Yeah. By the way,
he's been accused of doing.
Yeah, he was caught on surveillance video. He was caught. His rental car from Serbia to Spain was caught going through like
this guy wearing the motorcycle helmet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was found in a hardware store on surveillance video, like everybody's in a hardware store buying their duct tape before the. I mean, it's just crazy. Rob D'Amico, this is right up your alley. This next story, I thought of you when I picked it. You probably heard about this. Homicide detectives here in Miami investigating how a bodiless head. It's an interesting way they phrased it. A bodiless head. In other words, a head. Why don't they just say a head? That's like me saying me personally. It's redundant. A bodiless head. So just a head, Rob, washed ashore on a popular South Florida beach, Key Biscayne. My kids are there, often swimming in the water. They may have thought it was a coconut, but it was in fact a head. There was no body attached to the head, is a direct quote from Miami-Dade Police Department Detective Andre Martin. What do you do, Rob? And I can ask Phil this too. When you just have a head, I would assume it was in a state of serious decomposition because water does that as well. Where do you start? You can't take fingerprints, teeth, maybe?
DNA. You can still get DNA. So they're going to start with all that, and then same thing with dental records and everything else, missing people, missing persons reports and such. I saw that pop up the other day, pun intended. And I just thought, cartel killing, they took him out on a boat, and had, and didn't weight it down enough, or, it could have been, an accident and, fish got to him or sharks or something, but, it's Miami. So, I mean, we did several, like when I was down here with the FBI, we had to go find, it was a mob murder, and they basically, stuffed them in a 55-gallon drum and sealed it, and they threw it in the water, and it was actually fairly cold water down here. It was one of the canals, and we found it. I think it was like 10 years after it happened, and it was pretty messy. But he did have a Rolex in there. It wasn't still ticking.
Wow!
But that's how we ID'd him, because the body was more like soup than anything else.
Well, if it was still running, it'd be a good ad for Rolex.
It would be.
Like, yeah. Look. Someone's saying maybe it was a shark. You just don't know. This is a horrible story, but and I accidentally.
If it had been a Timex, it would have still been ticking. You remember those commercials? You remember the Timex commercials? Put in a 55-gallon drum with a dead guy for 10 years in the ocean, and it's still ticking. That's a Timex commercial. I think Joel's frozen.
Joel is frozen.
He is frozen.
Are we going to have to run the show here?
Well, I guess so, Rob. This has happened before. So,
the boss is coming on now.
The COE is intervening.
Yeah.
Just keep going. I'm going to check in on Joel. Give us a minute or two.
Okay. So
have you had the one body part turn up in your crime scenes, like an arm or leg?
I tell you, I've had the body and the head separated from one another. I had a scene with a meth cook who had gotten crossways with another meth cook, and the guy that he got crossways with cut his head and his hands off and then buried him. And then we got some information, found the body, and got him identified because of the some tats that he had on, some tattoos. But we never recovered the hands or the head. So, and we were, of course, there were all sorts of rumors that they were in a potted plant on somebody's front porch and that kind of stuff. But but that guy, and then the meth cook that did this, we captured him, put him in jail, all that good stuff, got convicted. He was supposedly known for putting people into 55-gallon drums. He had several different properties here in the Houston area around Texas, several different counties, and was supposed to be putting these bodies in the drums and then burying them on a variety of places in the properties that he had. In fact, this body was not in a 55-gallon drum, but it was in one of his properties in Waller County, which is an adjoining county to Harris. So
Yeah, I think I did some commentary on a case up in Kentucky. They're the same thing, that they're looking to, someone had a bunch of different properties and they're trying to figure out where he put the body on one of his properties. But you mentioned the pot in the front porch. Reminds me, when I first came down to Miami in 1995, a 7-year-old boy, Jimmy Rice, disappeared. Like from the bus stop to the house was only 50 yards. Parents had gone up to West Palm Beach for the weekend, and he had an older brother that was supposed to come home. And it ended up, we looked for him. I was doing scuba diving in canals down in southern, it was a very rural area of Miami, South Miami. And eventually, I think it was months later, a person came to the FBI and said they had a farm worker, migrant farm worker, that they suspected because some things were missing. So the husband brought him to the feed store, and the wife went into the trailer. They had a little camping trailer he could stay in. And when she went in there looking for her property, she found Jimmy Rice's book bag. And they eventually found him dismembered and put into a potting plant, a big one with cement and stuff.
and who was anyone arrested?
They ended up arresting him, for the murder. No, for the farm worker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's who they suspected, and they finally, that was what broke the case out. And he admitted after he went down. Miami-Dade detectives interviewed him. Yeah, there's Joel. We got you. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Joel?
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a little bit of an echo there, it sounds like, but
This might be the best show on all of YouTube. Theory, do we invest in something that actually works? That would be really good. Yeah, it would be nice equipment that works periodically. So I'm impressed that you guys.
Where did you buy this stuff? At Radio Shack? What do you? Of course, I think Radio Shack's out of business.
We buy it at Fisher Price. Yeah, Fisher Price. We get it at Sears, which is no longer in business either. So, Phil, on a sad, serious note, I didn't want to talk. You know what? This story is so depressing. I'm just going to mention it. So, there's a kid, 14 years old. He's living in California. And kids at school are relentlessly bullying him because his family is homeless. And the kid goes and unalives himself. I mean, what is your words of wisdom to cruel people in this world? Now we've lost a 14-year-old because nothing having to do with him. His parents couldn't afford a home. Word gets out in school, and the rest, sadly, is history. Wise words from Phil.
Well, I only got bits and pieces of that. What's a 14-year-old?
So he's being bullied for being homeless.
He's being bullied for being homeless?
And then he unalives himself.
So then he commits suicide, right?
Yes, correct.
And, well, you know what? I tell you what, it's always horrible when something like that happens, because that person, whoever they may be, whatever age they are, they've been driven to a point where, in their mind, they have no hope. And this is the only way to relieve themselves. And in a lot of cases, you'll find notes. I don't know if this young person left a note behind, but you'll find notes from people. I've worked homicides and suicides that a note is left behind, and sometimes they will apologize to their family for doing what they're going to do. And then sometimes they'll express anger. Sometimes they're driven to things. I've had suicide in my own family. So I'm well aware of the effects that this has on a family. These people that, whatever age they are, that say whatever they say, that drives somebody to get in that position where their reflection on themselves is that, I'm hopeless. I've got to remedy this in the most permanent way. If that can be, again, if that can be found as the source for why this happened, then they, of course, need to be held accountable. It's a horrible world we live in. I mean, and we're in a constant state of spiritual warfare. So this is horrible when I hear this thing, when these types of stories, especially for young people this age. And you have to wonder, the people that are accused of driving him to do this, I'm always curious as to what is their thought now? What is their perspective now? Do they feel any sense of guilt about their participation in this? Or are they just going, hey, we were just joking around and he went and did what he did. So it's always interesting about those types of cases. And it looks
All
like
right. Oh, sorry, Phil. I think Joel is having a lot of connection issues. Obviously, talking about any case about unaliving yourself is a very sensitive case and obviously very difficult for anyone. If you guys just want to give us each like a quick statement, and then I think we'll wrap the show because I don't think Joel's able to log on again.
he's gone into the black hole of technology. The black
He
hole
has.
of technology.
So just a quick comment on this case that we just talked about.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Phil, you want to go first?
Oh, no, go ahead, Rob.
Like you said, I think we see where the defense is trying to go with it. And I think everyone's going to find it, a bridge too far, so to speak. You can only buy so many. I always say, a lot of yellow flags equals a red flag to a point. So I think they're trying to lay it out to try to maybe get the charges lowered so that they can then plead and, she has a chance to not do the rest of her life in prison. But I don't think it's going to add up. I think there's just way too many things that point to the direction that she was the aggressor most of the time, that she was probably the aggressor here. Just because you have a pathologist come in and say, yes, it's a possibility that this happened, all the other supporting evidence doesn't go to that, doesn't support that. And I think that's where they're going to have a tough time. Miami juries can be crazy though too. It's
well, they all can, right? Yeah,
they can really surprise you. I think down here there's even more so. I don't know why, but when you hear some of the cases down here, as you know, they're out of hand. But I think like they're going to have a tough time with.
Well, I tell you, the one thing I am curious about is the specific argument they were in. I mean, I know she was kind of trying to explain it, and all that stuff, but I just wonder if detectives, upon interviewing her again, what her story is, why she felt like she needed to, do whatever she did. But so the backstory is always the interesting part, and to find out what led this up to the point where she did it. So it's an interesting case, and I think I agree with you. I think she is going to, her defense attorneys, I'm sure they've got her dressed in, the case I was telling you about with the 15-year-old that juked the guy was a MS-13 click leader. As a matter of fact, he was 16 years old, but the one-time juke there. I know that when I took the confession from her, I know what she looked like then. when they brought her into the courtroom, of course, it was a couple of years later, she looked like an ingenue. I mean, the transformation was amazing. So I'm sure that's what's happened here. Her appearance is going to be, people will not recognize her sitting in that courtroom from that video that we just saw the night before she stabbed him to death.
And Phil, already people keep saying that every time she's in court, she looks different every time. And we see that in a lot of cases. It is fascinating to see that transformation. I do want to say thank you to both of you guys. Legendary detective here, Phil Waters out of Houston. And we have retired FBI agent Rob D'Amico out of Florida. Thank you to both of you. Thank you to Joel for semi-hosting today's show. And thank you to all of STS Nation. We appreciate you guys. Apologies for the Wi-Fi. Thank you to everyone. Please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and you can also join the YouTube membership or follow us on Patreon. Thanks so much to everyone. Take care. Have a good weekend.